You never know what you're going to find in the Jay Glazer mailbag at theathletic.com. That's something that he does throughout the offseason. Last year, one of the nuggets buried in there was that he predicted Odell Beckham Jr. would be traded by the Giants. People went crazy, and then Odell Beckham Jr. was traded by the Giants. This time around, as it relates to the Giants, Jay Glazer suggesting that Dave Gettleman has 1 year to turn the team around, and if it doesn't happen, he'll be gone, and rightfully so. That's the quote from Glazer's article. And, Chris, here's my concern about this. When they hired Joe Judge as the coach to replace Pat Shurmur, and they gave Judge, I think, a 5-year deal with the goal of ensuring that they don't fire him after 1 or 2 years. The problem is if you fire the GM and you hire a new GM for next year, the new GM is going to want his own coach. And unless the new GM had plotted for years to, number one, become a GM, and number two, when I do become a GM, the first guy I'm hiring is Joe Judge, that 2021 season is going to be all about laying the foundation to fire Joe Judge and hire somebody else. So I don't like it when teams get on these off-schedule arrangements where you get a new coach with the old GM, then you get a new GM with the old coach, and the new GM's in charge, and before you know it, there's going to be another new coach and then another GM. Just get rid of everybody and start over again. That's the way to do it. Wipe the slate clean. And that's what, if the Giants are thinking Gettleman's on the hot seat this year, they should have fired him when they fired Pat Shurmur and gotten a new GM and a new head coach all at once.
Well, I think that was the common thought last year, that both would be gone. But obviously, Dave Gettleman made his plea to ownership and the other people that are in power there with the New York Giants, the Tisch family, the Mara family, and stated his case that he didn't think he deserved to be, at fault in the situation. Again, listen, Pat Shurmur was not great, didn't always do himself justice by the way he acted at press conferences. I don't think endeared himself to the media or the fan base here. Gettleman, it's been very up and down. It's been a rocky road. There's been some moves you look at and you go, oh, I like it. Okay. There's a few draft picks you've liked, but there's been other moves where you just go, oh, that's insane. And of course, 2 years to build a football team is not that long this day and age. So I don't think this comes as a shock. I kind of looked at this all along going, this is a big draft for Dave Gettleman. This is a big year for the Giants organization in general. But I expected Dave Gettleman to be on the hot seat if things didn't go well in New York.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I just think that and you made the point that Glazer made, that he went in and argued for himself and got one. Look, at some point, ownership's got to have strength if it's but you've got to have strength if it's your convictions, right? You got to be able to look at this and say, wait a minute, we stink. And we have stunk for the past several years. And we're getting a new coach anyway. And if we fire Dave Gettleman after 1 year, we have a mess in 2021, because then we're going to go out and get a GM and say to that GM, here's your coach, even if that's not a coach you would hire. And the Giants traditionally have a strong GM model where the GM supervises and ultimately hires and fires the coach. So I just don't like any of this. And I continue, and I'm going to be as tactful as I can. I don't know. Why am I even bothering to try? I feel like John Mara is way too involved with this team, and he tries to act like he's not. And at some point, you got to hire somebody that you trust, and you just got to let them run the show. And you got to, just because you've owned the team for all these years doesn't mean that all of a sudden you know how to make all the right moves. And I know Jerry Jones thinks that he can do that because he's owned the Cowboys for 30 years and he made himself the GM from day one. But I think that at some point you've just got to take a step back. I just feel like there's been a little too much behind the scenes meddling by ownership in the Giants in recent years. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I disagree. I think that they've always been like that. It's a family business. That's the way they are. I mean, it's just, listen, I'm biased here. I know the family. They're great people. Like you, if you owned a football team.
They're bad people.
Well, I know, but if you owned a football team, you'd have your nose in everything too. So I think you could relate to it a little bit, you jerk. We'll be back at PFT after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.